Hi, welcome to my new show, Patten Disregard, where not only can you listen to me wherever you get your podcasts, but now you can also watch me. Just go to Booked It Media's YouTube page. On this week's show, we talk with Catherine Russell, actress, general manager, and urban legend who has been starring off-Broadway in Perfect Crime since 1987. And we introduce my favorite Broadway veteran turned therapist, Lisa Gajda, who will be with us this season to help keep us all sane.
If you work in the theaters of Manhattan, you probably heard of Nate Patten. And whether black, white, Asian, or Latin, you want to punch him right in the mouth. But please don't do it, no, he's just our Nate, a man of many thoughts he can't abbreviate. But if you like a gay, misanthropic, self-hating Jew, then Patten Disregard is just the show for you. Yeah.
I've been feeling a little anxious, and it's not because I now need 2 negative tests if I want to see Chicken and Biscuits. I've been terrified that the entire theater community is making all of its decisions in a complete state of abject terror. And I mean all decisions. Which shows to produce, which actors to cast, which pronouns Olaf the Snowman uses. Everything is being done out of the fear of being canceled. Now, fear is not new to the industry. In the 1950s, people were afraid to speak up because they risked being blacklisted. And if you were one of Faye Dunaway's assistants, you needed to wear a helmet to work. But that was fear from within the industry, not from a bunch of random people on social media. A Twitter mob has literally taken over the entire art scene, and not just on Broadway. An Australian production of Hedwig and the Angry Inch canceled its production after 18 months of no theater because the lead actor wasn't trans, even though the authors themselves explicitly said the character isn't even trans. No, it's not enough. It's about appeasing this unending well of wokeness which has left the entire Broadway community looking like a dystopian nightmare. People in the arts are angrier than Joy Behar at a screening of Passion of the Christ. But this culture of trying to create art while under this umbrella of terror is not conducive to inspiration or collaboration. Nobody keeps working on Sky Mall Sudoku when the plane is crashing. Well, I do, but it's in order to try to finally accomplish something before I die. Welcome to Outrage Roulette. In this segment, we spin 2 roulette wheels, one of Tony Award nominees from the 90s and another of social justice issues. When both wheels stop, we will call out said 90s star for their silence on whatever social issue the wheel spins to. Okay, let's spin the wheel. Dee Hody, please explain your silence on the Latvian wage gap. Well, Dee, I have nothing else to say except your silence on this issue is, frankly, deafening. If you know Dee Hody, we here at Patten Disregard demand that you tag her and ask her to explain her silence on the people of Latvia's wage gap. This is an attack on the people of Latvia, Dee. We demand an answer. As we all know, it's been a pretty rough time in the theater business, and Broadway has really suffered a pretty devastating blow in the past 18 months. So I thought there was no better person to come on this show and talk about the difficult time we're having than a dear friend of mine who has 19 Broadway credits to her name and who is now a therapist herself. Please welcome the wonderful Lisa Gajda.
Hi.
So we had you on Booked It 100,000 times. And every time you were on, our ratings went up. I don't think that's entirely an accident. I think that you spoke so candidly on this show about your experience in the field as a dancer and a singer and a performer, and the often very serious toll it took on your mental health. I can only think that it resonated with so many people.
Probably. I mean, there's a shit showness to the whole thing. And this is not to put down the business, but it's like there's a shit showness already. And then you put a shit show inside a massive shit show that's inside a larger shit show. And it's like, what the fuck? Also, too, you gave me an extra Broadway show.
Is it 18?
18, yeah.
There was one that you almost booked, and I was counting that because you were so close. But I really feel, and I say this without any sense of unkindness to the industry or any sense of irony or sarcasm. I feel like we're fucked up right now.
Yeah.
I feel like the business as a whole is we're screwed up. We have PTSD.
We absolutely do. And the thing is, like, I was watching the Tonys and I was like, as I observed it, I thought it was amazing. And there was also this sense, I watched it, I was like, oh, we've changed the Tonys forever. You know what I mean? Like, just like we've changed a lot of things forever. I think like the number one thing I would say about this whole thing is we are not okay. And the worst thing we can do is to personalize the fact that we're not okay or not the same and accept that no one is, the business isn't, the world isn't, the country isn't. And, you know, it's okay to grieve and long for what we used to have.
Elaborate on what about the Tonys you're like, it's gone forever.
Because
forever. What changed?
I could see that people were not the people that were probably doing those shows 18 months ago. They were more, it just didn't look shiny and glossy. You know what I mean? It was in some ways rough around the edges, in some ways more alive. People didn't look slick. You know, they looked like they've been through something. It sort of universalized it for me. And people are kind of going back to work, like feeling personally like it's their job to be in a place that they can't be right now, whether it's their body, whether it's their mind.
I was working with a girl on a show right now, a young, wonderful actress, probably in her early 20s, I think. And she said to me that she felt like she just didn't trust anything. Her feeling was like, she's like, I'm ready for everything to just shut down again.
That's right.
And she was saying, I can't allow myself to feel excited about it reopening because it's like my brain won't allow me to feel that.
I've heard this over and over again.
Yeah.
It's that sense of like, we have been really humbled by life. Like as a therapist, I'm going to talk in like a lot of, if I watch this back, like in 5 years, I will definitely want to die because I'm going to use a lot of bullshit therapy language right now. But I would want to hold a lot of space for the fact that that's really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And then I would want to explore the concept of it being a version of growing up.
Yeah.
And that it is okay to know what has always been true. And we have to sort of hold that, you know, we're mammals. We like to know where we are. We like to know what's going to happen. Life is scary. We're going to die. How do we grow into that? And what are the benefits of living in that reality?
There was something for me personally that I can speak to that was very hard, which was that the idea that everything could shut down in one day and then just be closed for a year and a half.
I mean,
it was like a brick wall to the face.
Yeah. And it needs to be said that it's horrible. Like it is absolutely. So if people are like thinking like this was horrible, the answer is yes, it's horrible. Out of nowhere, everything can fall apart. And so it needs to be named that these losses are massive. And then we have to give a process around the losses. So like, I'm not tough loving anyone. There has to be a ton of process around the loss. I have found that people have gotten things, they've gained things from being burned in this fire. You know, there are some things people have, some things they've learned, some parts of themselves that they've located that they're like, can I exist in the world that used to be here with who I am now? And I don't want to give that up.
A lot of people left the business.
Yeah.
They did, because I think they were an actor, they were a musician, and they were like, well, now I'm a yoga instructor. And they were like, you know what?
Yeah.
I kind of like this.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually are doing something that makes them much happier now. Tell me about transitioning from being a dancer, singer, actor for years and years to being a therapist. Yeah. What's the same and then what's entirely different?
You know, it feels very much in my body like I'm using the same stuff because the kind of therapy that I practice is using instinct and intuition. And oftentimes I'll trust my own body's sort of message to me. It sounds like a lot of voodoo. Trust me, 5 goddamn years of school.
Yeah. We're so happy to have you on here because the number of people that could have your life experience in show business, but also have the training and skills required to be a therapist. Yeah. That Venn diagram is very small.
My whole practice, most of the people in my practice are just like me.
but not you, because I guarantee you they don't have 18 or 19 Broadway credits. They
Each
really
time
don't.
I come on, it's going to be like, at least the
She
guy
has
has
38.
21.
She is a 4-time Tony Award winner.
Yep.
Anyway, we're so happy to have you here on this first season of Patten Disregard. And one of the reasons is I think that there's actually a big stigma often attached to mental health. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually really glad on this show to be willing to talk about mental health in a constructive way. After this year and a half, I'm as messed up as everybody else. I could use a conversation with you on a daily basis. And I think our listeners at home can too.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like, it's a word that therapists abuse, which is like normalizing. Like, and normalizing that we're not there yet. We're still in the pandemic. We haven't had it. And if you think about what we've been doing neurologically, so I will use myself as an example, which the kind of therapy that I do, like relational therapy, the kind of therapy I do is we talk a little bit about what things are like for us. So for me in the pandemic, I had to rewire over the course to survive. I was in survival mode. I think we all were. So I was literally rewiring to the point that people would say, how are you? And I would say, I'm the new happy. Did you have an experience that was anything like, what was your experience like?
100% that. I think there's a lot of things that I just got used to and sort of became okay. Sometimes I think like, wow, I'm walking around with my face covered all day. How could that be okay?
It's not okay. When I say it's not okay, I just mean we're not done. And so we haven't even begun to process what occurred.
Have you had any moments of extreme emotion that came up when you did something that you hadn't done in a while? I walked into a Broadway house and I was just like it just somehow the weight of everything that had happened hit me in that moment. I felt like the loss of just like the time that we closed theater for a year and a half. Like
what did you experience? Grief or?
I think just an overwhelming sense of nostalgia. One, I was like, oh, that's what that felt like. That's what theater was like. But then also just like sadness for, not even just for me, but like everyone who died. I had that moment of like, man, all these people died from this. Like it just hit me, but in one particular moment when I walked into a Broadway house.
Yeah. I mean, again, like you, like my mind can't even really wrap itself around that reality yet. And I think that it's going to take time to do it. When I came back, I mostly found that socially I wasn't normal and I actually wasn't enjoying people, which normally is my food. I love people.
Right.
And so I think that's the thing is like, we're kind of like, we're feral cats and we're like peeking out and going like, what's out here? And if you think, I mean, as you were talking about walking into the theater and everything, all of the loss, like think about like George Floyd,
right?
Like these like enormous things. And we were pinned down in reality, living in reality in real time, not able to wiggle away from all kinds of shit we've wanted to wiggle away from. It can't be said enough, the enormity of what the body, because like the therapy that I do just takes into account the body.
Yeah.
It can only handle so much. It's a processing machine. You have emotions. They're there for, evolutionarily so that we know what next steps need to be. And you're supposed to have a process, a beginning, a middle, and an end. We haven't had a middle.
Right.
We have beginning, because it wasn't safe to go to the middle yet.
We had 5 years of just complete
hell
of tumultuous politics.
Oh my God.
And
trauma.
An ideological war
in
this country.
That too.
Between two sets of people.
We had an insurrection.
Right. We did.
Come on. This is the thing. It's like, so then
I know.
You watch the Tonys and I listen to my friends who are like in show business going back and people are showing up with everything we just named and expecting themselves and being hard on themselves for whatever, falling out of a pirouette or not feeling normal or not feeling, feeling overwhelmed. A lot of my friends feel hard on their bodies. Their bodies look beautiful. Those are the bodies of human beings who have been through something. And it's nice to see some bodies actually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess it's a chance for all of those old weird rules to burn down and for us to decide what the new rules are going to be.
Can you give me an example of one?
How much space are we going to finally get to be different You know what I mean? Like to have more
as a dancer, for example.
I'm thinking of dancers, and I'm just thinking of like how I think one of the things I've noticed without being too specific about clients is that they have learned, like when I left show business, I was like, oh, guess what? Like beveling murdered my soul for 25 years. Like it stands against everything that lives inside my body. I'm not like against it as a, like if you want to bevel, if I understand that it's grown up land and I have to facilitate somebody else's vision, but the vision has been so narrow for so long. What would it be like for people who have learned that they don't want to put themselves back into the slivers of existence that they were allowed before the pandemic fully. And so this is a chance for us to go like, that's a beautiful body. I want to see more variety in everything, the whole time I was on stage, we were doing one thing. And I think there's more room.
Lisa, we're going to continue this conversation because I think it's fascinating, and also because I know our listeners at home are feeling a lot of what we're talking about, and I think it'll be a great thing for us to talk about with America. I'm about to speak with Katherine Russell, the longtime star of Off-Broadway's Perfect Crime. If you want to hear stories of what it's like being in the same show for over 13,000 performances, you're going to want to stick around. So, you just hit 13,693 performances, and you've never called out sick.
That's correct.
And
I'm very healthy, yes.
Knock on wood. I gotta love you. So you've missed 4 total. So do you mind my asking what the 4 were for?
No, not at all. My sister and brother got married and had the temerity of putting me in the wedding party, so I had to come.
How close was that to when you opened?
Within the first, one was 1988, and then one probably was early 90s,
So
1995. So I haven't missed since 1995.
You haven't missed anything since 95.
No, when I got married myself, I got married at City Hall. We went to the Palm for lunch. He went home and took a nap, and I went to work.
So even your own wedding didn't stop you from getting on stage.
That's true.
I have to tell you, like, in the same way that I don't understand astrophysics or astronomy, having done the 8-show week myself, I really can't, like, I was thinking that you've done this. I've been trying to visualize or internalize what it would feel like to do that many of the same show, and I can't do it.
Well, I don't think doing a long run like this is for everyone. It's definitely good for me. I'm a person who likes stability.
Yeah.
And I chose a profession where there is no stability. So almost by accident, I didn't know Perfect Crime was going to run a long time. I fell into something where I could have some stability in my life. I do lots of other things during the day. I teach, I run a business. So getting on stage every night or 8 times a week is my fun time. It's like going to the gym. It's a real workout. Plus, I try to make every performance a little bit different. So I know that when people come to see the show, if they read in the program that I've done it 13,000 whatever times, they're like, oh, she's phoning it in. And I'm like, screw you, watch me. I am not phoning it in. In fact, the smaller the house, the harder I work.
Amazing.
I want to make sure that people feel like they are getting a good performance from me.
At what point did you get into the Guinness Book of World Records for this?
Probably about maybe 10 years ago, a long time ago.
Did you start to feel at a certain point that you were like, now I really, really can't miss? Because now it's, once you pass that point, now you're like, it's too late. Like, I got to go on ahead of what?
No, the longest record was Marion Seldes, and she was a year and a half.
Death Trap, is that right?
And she used to call me, only to Marion Seldes was that young woman who broke my record. God bless her. So no one will ever catch up with me. No one's crazy enough to do that. So I'm not really worried about breaking my record. I like going to work. I like my work. So I'm going to show up.
What's the best audience that you've had, if you can think of one, and what's the worst audience you've had in all these years? Since it was 1987 you started?
Sure.
Can you think of one audience that was just through the roof wonderful?
A lot of audiences are wonderful. They're different days of the week. Sunday nights tend to be a mystery audience, maybe because Murder, She Wrote was on Sunday nights. I think maybe Columbo, and I'm pretty sure Perry Mason was on Sunday nights. Right. So I think there's a Sunday night vibe. So people don't laugh, really. They listen because the play is funny, but there are lots of clues. And it's almost as if someone said, don't laugh, pay attention because you need to figure it all out.
Do you ever have an audience that you were like, this was the worst audience I've ever performed for, and I've been doing this since 1987.
Well, there was one audience. There was a man in the audience. We've had 2 people projectile vomit on the stage, little kids.
And you weren't sure if that was the worst?
That was pretty bad. Then there was one, I get slapped and strangled in the
Right.
play, and the guy was like, slap her again, grab her again. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a little creepy.
Wow.
So they might be projectile vomiting and like urging the other actors to, inflict physical harm in me might be what I consider bad. But other than that, they pretty much have been pretty good audiences.
Where are you from?
I'm from Connecticut, New Canaan, Connecticut.
I was going to guess, honestly, the Midwest. I
thank
had
you.
no idea. But I was going to guess either the Midwest or a town that is sort of like the Midwest. Because I always think that I love the Midwest. And I like the working class towns.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've always sort of felt like a great vibe out in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
They're working, like people that work in coal mines, people that work on the farms. There's a working class vibe.
Right.
And I feel like you are in this industry, you're a working class, woman. You like.
That's a compliment. I feel good.
I mean it as a compliment. I mean, you represent the working class in that you show up at work every day.
I do.
Yeah.
Jimmy Gatens, who ran the tickets booth for many, many years, used to say, he was my mentor, used to say I'm single-handedly like raising the unemployment rate in New York because
Totally.
I have so many jobs. I'm just taking
Right.
jobs away from people who need them.
So speaking of which, so you are the general manager at the theater.
Yes, I general manage the theater, which I built.
Right.
But I also general manage Perfect Crime for the producer who lives in Massachusetts.
I have seen you, because I've used that rehearsal space, I've seen you in the box office.
Right. I sell tickets.
Of your own show.
No, I don't sell tickets to my own show. I don't sell tickets to Perfect Crime, but we have 2 theaters. So, for example, when The Fantastics was running, I would run the box office up till 8 o'clock, quickly do the settlement, run on stage, run to my dressing room, grab a gun, throw a wig on, and get on stage at 8:06.
I saw you once in the box office. I don't know if you remember this, but I said it was 7:59 and you were in the box office. And I
Right.
said, "Oh, you must be dark tonight." And you said, "No, we have a show." And I'm looking at my phone it's 7:59 and you're in the box office looking as calm
Right.
as if you were at home.
Well,
And I was like, "Wait, you have a show in 1 minute?"
Well, we start a little late because Perfect Crime's a mystery and there's a murder in the very first scene.
Right.
So we usually start 10 after 8.
Right.
All right. So because if you miss the murder, you're going to be even more confused than you might be otherwise. So I had a little bit of time. And, I don't really need a lot of preparation. I've done it for a long time.
I read in an interview that you also, I just have to say this because I read it, I think in the New York Times, that you also do the bathrooms too in the theater. Like you handle all parts of you do the maintenance in the theater too.
Well, we have somebody who cleans the theater, but on a Saturday, if there's something gross in the bathrooms,
Right.
you're in essence coming into my second home. I want to make sure it's clean.
Right.
And also,
Patty LaPone's not doing that. Let me tell you right now.
no, but also for the other people who work in the theater, for example, the house managers, I'm not going to ask them to clean up vomit if I'm not going to do it. Does that make sense? I'm not going to ask them, to plunge the toilet. People are much more willing to work hard if they see everybody working hard. And there's no shame in plunging a toilet. I have a really great plunger.
You're I'm sure
No, but,
you do.
but I mean, I feel that's really important. And I also think theaters should be clean,
Yeah.
and if they're not,
Totally.
that's gross. And I don't want people to think the theater's gross.
And I mean this as a compliment, even if it doesn't sound like it. It's almost like a circus, like how the circuses used to travel, and there was this joy, and they were all self-contained. Circuses
Right.
they would do all of the stuff themselves, and they would perform, but it was always sort of rooted in the joy of live performing, I think. And that's what I think that it's one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on here is I feel like you represent that part of the industry that is just. I'm fascinated that you're there for this long because you have to love it. There's no way you couldn't love this unless you were a sadist. If you hated this,
No. And in fact, I was on stage the other day, and as I'm working off this really wonderful actor named Mark Campbell, who's been in the show for a couple of months, and he's fabulous. And it's different every night. And I thought, oh my God, I love this so much. I'm on stage thinking, this is so much fun. So yeah, I still have, if I didn't have the joy in doing it, I wouldn't do it anymore. I don't need to do it anymore.
You couldn't. I don't see how you
No,
could.
I derive great joy from it. And maybe that means like I'm really stupid and I like doing the same thing over and over again. Or maybe it means I found what makes me happy. I mean, literally this morning, I teach English, 8 o'clock in the morning. I was telling my students to figure out what kind of job they might want to have in 10 years and what gives them joy.
Yeah.
And I said to them, I'm really happy standing in this classroom at 8 o'clock in the morning talking to you. They can tell I am. I'm very happy.
Yeah.
And then I'm happy going to the theater and doing work.
Yes.
And selling the tickets and going on stage. You have to find work that fills you up. You know, Sigmund Freud, who I disagree with on a lot of things, said love and work. You need a balance between love and work. I think it's really important to have both of those things. And when one isn't going so well, the other can sustain you.
Yeah.
So my husband died 2 years ago. He was the love of my life. And what really got me through and is still getting me through is working hard.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
So let's talk about the balance of love and work.
Okay.
Tell me about your husband.
I was engaged when Perfect Crime first opened to a man who decided that Perfect Crime ruined his life. And we broke up in 1988.
That's a bad review.
Exactly, a very bad review. I'm sure he's much happier now. So my husband read an article about me in the Wall Street Journal that we had put outside the theater that it said like a life of perfect crime, that I hadn't missed a show in 6 years. And he went, that's the girl for me. And he started sending me flowers and asking me out. And he's like a real New York guy. He owned a bunch of restaurants in New York. Kind of talk like this. Pat Roviselli, that's my name. And he and I was living with the man who wrote the play. And I was like, leave me alone. I am not interested. And he just kept like being around and saying hi. And I finally at one point said, okay, let's have a cup of coffee. And I have to say, I pretty much fell in love with him.
Oh my God. You married a super fan, essentially.
Well, sort of. I mean, he would argue that I pursued him, but I have to say, no. But he knew exactly what he was getting into. When he asked me out, he knew exactly what he was getting into.
Right.
And so we were together for 24 years until he died. He died in 2019. When he died, he had a restaurant, a pizzeria called Patzeria, Perfect Pizza, because his name was Patrick. And so after he died, his partner, I think, maybe thought about whether or not to close it or not, certainly during COVID. And I was like, no way, we are keeping this going.
Sure.
There's a big picture of him in Patzeria with
40,
an apron on
46th Street,
across the street from Hamilton, and Ain't Too Proud, right down the street from on Fantan.
Yes.
And he fed basically the stagehands, the usherettes. His mother was head usherette at the Royale Theater. So he knew about women in theater.
Sure.
All the actors, the audiences, everybody came and he was like, I feed all of Broadway. That's me. And so I've kept it going. And through COVID, we were able to keep going. And we are more than breaking even. We're actually making a profit even before, Broadway opened. And it's my homage to him. I'm keeping it going. So I literally at night after I do the show, walk down 4 blocks to 46th Street and check on the place. We built outdoor dining and we're sort of changing the menu. And it gives me great pleasure to feel like he's living on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it must feel like that's a real tribute to him too, and to what he wanted the scene to look like.
I think he would want that. And I mean, I'm a romantic. My students all laugh at me. I think we're meant to have one soulmate in our life. And you don't know when you're going to meet that person. I was literally 40 when I met him.
Wow.
Or 39. And I'm so grateful that I could have that much love in my life.
Amazing.
So I can't really feel sorry for myself because I had this amazing man in my life. And if I can keep him alive a little bit by keeping his pizzeria going, so be it.
Totally. It makes me think about the fact when you just said that over 34 years, you have to have gone on stage in certain nights that you were grieving or that you were sad.
After he died, absolutely. Absolutely. But it was healing. First of all, it's an appropriate way. It's a great part. She gets to yell and scream and cry and whatever. So I get it all out. So by the time I'm off stage, I've let all that crap out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can grab a slice of pizza and go home and feel okay.
Yeah.
It's an appropriate, I don't think acting's therapy, but it's an appropriate way to kind of deal with all the crap that goes on in your life without yelling at people or feeling sorry for yourself or hiding under the covers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like meditating.
Sort of,
It's like a daily practice almost that you sort of do to achieve. It's about doing it every day as opposed to getting an end result.
Yeah, and I feel really blessed that I get to do something that I like.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Oh my
maybe
God.
I read in the Daily News a couple of weeks ago that only 7% of Americans think they have their dream job.
Wow.
7%. That's scary.
And
That's
you
scary.
would say you do.
I do have my dream job.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what? It's funny. I was just thinking about this. It is a great part. It's because the truth is, if it wasn't originally in 1987 done at an off-Broadway play, if it was a film, it would have been played by Meryl Streep. Because it is a huge role, and you do run the gamut of the emotions over the course of the evening too. Like, it is a meaty part.
Absolutely. It was optioned in 1980 for Broadway by Morton Gottlieb.
Get out of here.
Yes, and Mary Tyler Moore was going to do it. Elaine
Right.
Stritch was going to do it. A bunch of actresses had committed to it, and the playwright decided that he wanted to go to Hollywood instead and write screenplays, and he put it in a drawer. And then 7 years later, he pulled it out. He was artistic director of the theater company I was in, and he said, let's do this play.
I didn't know that, but that makes so much sense to me, because the truth is, you wouldn't get a play like that produced today if it was new without putting in somebody that everybody knew.
Absolutely.
Because it's a huge part. Like,
Right.
you don't cast a person.
Catherine Russell. No, you don't. No, absolutely. No, you would need a name.
Sure.
Certainly.
And what do you think about a Broadway transfer? Because the truth is, we want to fund it. I mean, like, we're ready. I'm telling you, we think you deserve a Tony nomination.
Thank you. Plays don't last on Broadway. I'm an off-Broadway girl. I love working off-Broadway. I think you can make money off-Broadway. I love the fact that everybody pitches in off-Broadway and works.
Yeah.
Once you go to Broadway, the stakes are higher. And while I think it's really glamorous, I'm not a very glamorous person.
Tell me about the economics of off-Broadway.
I think that if you want to have a show produced, doing it off-Broadway might be either a good first step or the only step. The longest running show ever in New York was The Fantastics. It ran 42 years off-Broadway. It closed in 2002, and then in 2006, it reopened at the Theater Center.
Right.
And it ran another 11 years. And that show has no set, a piano and a harp. It's a beautiful, beautiful show. And it was able to run off-Broadway for so many years because it was off-Broadway, and it wouldn't have lasted on Broadway. And I think most plays really struggle to last on Broadway. My play's been able to run for a long time because it's off-Broadway. Off-Broadway costs less. We are an equity show. We pay equity salaries. We don't have Local 1. We don't have Treasurers Union. We're too small. It's not worth those unions to ask us to have employees. It doesn't make financial sense for them.
Right.
So it means that if you have $100,000, for example, you could conceivably produce a show off-Broadway doing what's known as the periodic performance contract, where you might do 2 or 3 shows a week, sharing the space. And you share the expense of the lights and the sound and the entire package, so it makes it much more affordable for people to get their show up and running.
And you can profit off of it? Is it possible to turn a profit?
It is possible to turn a profit if you're, cheap like me. But no, if you are willing to think carefully about how you're spending your money so that you don't compromise artistic integrity.
Yeah.
And I'm working on raising money to convert a garage in Times Square on 49th Street into 5 off-Broadway theaters.
Oh my God.
And studios, so that people will have venues that are well-run, that are supportive of the work, and that where people can see something midtown, where I think people feel more comfortable coming to see theater most of the time.
We're in a little bit of a fiscal crisis in the Broadway scene right now because we're not certain of what's going to happen with audiences coming back. And that, to me, feels scary from an economic perspective. Do you think that the off-Broadway scene, because tickets are cheaper, they're more accessible, is that going to thrive post-COVID?
That's a really good question. First of all, I was able to open because my theater's small.
Right.
All right. So I think off-Broadway theaters are more nimble. I also think that the Theater Center makes money. I think I'm raising money. I'm raising $10 million. People will get their money back. I'm not asking anybody to invest in a show. I would never do that. I get a look on my face like, don't hit me. I know you're going to lose your money. This is a real estate investment.
Right.
So it doesn't matter whether the shows are successful or not.
Right.
Because if one show closes, another show is going to come in and take the space.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense from a real estate point of view. I'm not going to theater people really anymore. I'm going to real estate people.
And it's not art dependent.
It doesn't
have to be Perfect Crime to run 34 years.
I don't know if I would call Perfect Crime art. I would call it, no, I've been in it.
What is, I mean,
it's a commercial. It's a commercial show.
It's like the Mona Lisa.
No, I have no pretensions that way. I know exactly what Perfect Crime is. It's a thriller. People like mysteries. We've made it work. But I think there's certainly art off-Broadway. I don't know how long it lasts. Yeah. I don't know. But my point is we need more venues so that people can get their shows up. If people want to produce, the best way to produce is to produce an off-Broadway show before they produce on Broadway.
Yes.
And I say to people who want to produce, learn how to run the box office. Yeah. Don't be afraid to change the paper towels in the bathroom.
And
Do you know what I mean?
Toilet.
Plunge the toilet.
Yes,
learn how the lighting booth works. Learn
Right.
the difference between, learn what lighting instruments are. Learn how to go and work the TKTS booth. Okay.
Right.
If you do that off-Broadway, where you're raising maybe a few $100,000, you're going to be much better prepared when you go into a Broadway theater and raise money, I think.
You always have people in the TKTS
I do.
area. Did you ever do it yourself? Were you ever the person in there?
I would never sell tickets to my own show, and I would never promote my own show. That just seems,
Right.
I don't know.
Antithetical to
Maybe.
to you, I think.
But
too.
I work really hard, like for the Fantastics, for The Office,
Right.
anything that I'm involved in. I absolutely sell tickets, and I've gone down there and handed out flyers if necessary. Sure.
I always see somebody handing out Perfect Crime flyers. I mean, I certainly did pre-COVID.
Yeah, we know
but-
we have someone now. I have
Yeah.
amazing people who are have a great work ethic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You have been in this show since you've seen the 90s on Broadway. When
Right.
Giuliani cleaned up Times Square and Disney came into Broadway. You saw 9/11. You've seen COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been a fixture in Midtown. Or I guess it's always been in Midtown.
Yeah, almost always, yeah.
You've been a fixture in Midtown and watched everything around you change. What has that been like to see the evolution of Times Square, which we've gone up and down and up, and I'd say
Right.
we're down right now.
Maybe when we moved I renovated a strip joint, I think in 1993. It was right at 46th and Broadway where the American Eagle store is.
Yes.
There used to be Howard Johnson's there.
Yeah, I
and then there
remember.
was an iconic gay strip joint called the Gaiety. And above that, a woman owned that place, and her husband owned right above it the whirly-girly Paris Burlesque. And that was closed for prostitution, and I renovated.
How could that have happened?
Well, when we moved in, there was a runway, KY jelly, crucifixes, Mother's Day cards. Very interesting, things left. But we turned it into a theater.
Right.
But there were 3 Card Monte guys, if you know what that is, outside.
Yes,
right.
I remember
and
this.
it was pretty dangerous, right?
Oh,
At 46th
God.
and Broadway, believe it or not.
Right.
And Giuliani was certainly, I'm not a fan, but at the time he did a very good job cleaning up the city.
Yeah.
I had the beeper numbers, believe it or not, this is before cell phones, of the cops on the beat. Whenever there was any problem, they would come right away. There was a guy named, we used to call him Eddie Sixpack. He was on 46th Street. No, but he was a police officer who took protecting the theater district really seriously.
Wow.
And so I always felt very safe there.
I want to hear about Eddie Sixpack. We have a lot of gay fans here. We want to hear it.
He was called Eddie Sixpack, not because he had a six-pack, but his name was like Six Packs or something.
Oh.
That was literally what we called him,
Okay.
Eddie Sixpack.
I assumed he was hot. Right.
Well, I'm sure he would tell you he was hot. He was a good-looking guy, right? He liked to flirt with all the girls.
Right.
And he had a partner, Don Lemon, I believe his name was. And I believe their fathers had been partners.
Amazing.
Years before. And they took their job protecting the theater, the blocks that the theaters were on very seriously. And yes, they had beepers, because this is before everyone had a cell phone. And if somebody was coming into the theater and looking dangerous, you would beep Eddie and he would just show up.
I think if anyone listening to this is under 32, they literally don't even know what a beeper is. I
Right.
do remember beepers.
Yeah, you just hit a number in and then
Yeah.
it would pop up and he would know, go to the theater, go see Kathy, go see Danny, go see whatever, he would know.
It's wild.
But it was great.
It's kind of like having how a building would have a security guard. It was like, this was the guy who just ran the Broadway scene.
Right. I mean, I think, and I'm sure that, the Broadway bigwigs all knew that. And they were, in partnership with the New York City Police Department. People wanted Broadway to be safe.
It was rough back then, if I can recall as a kid. Like Times Square felt
When we first moved in there, yeah. I mean, I'd have to take a baseball bat out sometimes outside my door and chase people away.
I mean,
yeah.
Where's Eddie Six? Why do we need Eddie Six-Pack?
Yeah.
They should have had
he
you.
He was on his way. No. But you know what I mean? You'd have to kind of be kind of aggressive, like get away from my door, you know?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it got better. Absolutely. I had renovated. What had happened was there was this Howard Johnson's and then this gay strip joint and this other strip joint. So once I turned the naked women into a legitimate theater, it still confused people. For example, for maybe 2 years, the fire department came and checked us out like almost every week. They were really disappointed when they saw there weren't any naked women. But the guys from the Gaiety really enjoyed the view as they were climbing all the stairs.
What went in there? What did you replace it with?
Perfect Crime. We did Perfect Crime there.
God.
We did Perfect Crime. Yes, we're the whirly
so
girl.
they're there to see naked women, and then it's a murder mystery play.
With 3 middle-aged guys. Like, it was definitely not exciting at all. But they were very vigilant. We did not have, we actually had a fire at one point in the Gaiety. I seem to remember, there was a space heater. We could sometimes hear, what's a nice way to put it, activity going on in the Gaiety.
Oh, my God.
And I feuded with a woman. Her name was Denise Rosius, and she and I feuded with each other for years. And at one point, she came upstairs and we went down to tell her she was making too much noise, sex noise. And she came up and tried to spray my house manager with a fire extinguisher. So when they told me this, I called Patrick, then my boyfriend, and said, call Eddie Six-Pack. I'm going down and I'm going to kill the bitch. And I went downstairs with my baseball bat to the Gaiety. She was behind a plexiglass, a window, and I banged with my baseball bat. You bitch! I said, you ever come upstairs, I will kill you. And I said, in front of this police officer, I will kill you if you ever come upstairs again. And I cut my hand and I wiped blood all over the the plexiglass. And he's like, Kath. And my boyfriend is like, Kathy, stop. I'm like, I will kill you. And
to our listeners at home, do not cross Catherine Russell.
No. We eventually got to be very good friends. All right. We made up. All right.
Okay. Wait.
Denise and
from that, you became good friends.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Denise and I became good friends. And when the building was sold and we had to find a new space, she asked me if she could come with me wherever I went and if I would renovate a place for her.
That's hard for me to wrap my head around.
I did have to perform for like 12 years, always with like, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. Like, I could hear it very like underneath my feet, But it all worked out. And we made up after a while. So, but
who wants to hold a grudge?
Exactly. But she stayed away for like maybe 2 or 3 months. She didn't come upstairs. The threat seemed to work.
I wonder why.
But I saw Times Square evolve it became more Disneyfied, right?
Oh,
and I don't think that's bad.
No. Well, I mean, it brought in a totally different crowd of people. Right. I mean, I think Beauty and the Beast opening in 1994, I know, was a game changer for the whole industry.
Right.
Because it made Times Square Disney World-ish.
And appropriate for children.
That's what
right?
I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What has it been like now to reopen post-COVID? What was the first show back like?
So I sued Cuomo, de Blasio, and the state of New York. October of 2020, I read that bowling alleys were open.
Right.
I lost my friggin' mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I'm with you on
bowling
this.
alleys, not theaters. And so I found this lawyer, Jim Remigas, who had gotten the restaurants open and said, will you take our case? And he said, I'll charge you $15,000. And so I tried to find a bunch of other theaters to kick in $1,000 each so we could do basically a class action suit.
Yeah.
And he did a very good job and got us really close. And a week before we were due to go to court, Cuomo decided that we could open at 33%.
Okay.
So I think some pressure was put on him.
Yeah.
So,
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
For what it's worth. that there is, if you're going to open a bowling alley, and also that restaurants were open.
Right.
How are we? And you're making a living doing this. Like,
we are, and also I did a lot of research, and I installed these amazing Matterhorn air scrubbers.
Yes.
So the air is.
Did that exist before this? By the way, Matterhorn air.
Yes, they were. They were used at NASA and really fancy hospitals. No, so I did my research.
Amazing.
If I'm going to sue, I better make sure.
Totally.
I better cover my ass, right?
Yeah.
So I bought 10 of them. They're all over the theater center. No one has gotten sick. No one.
Yeah.
Everybody has to wear a mask. Everybody's vaccinated.
Right.
Everybody works, obviously, the theater. And so we haven't had anybody get sick.
Amazing.
But we opened The Office, which is a non-union show, opened April 9th. Okay. And then Perfect Crime, which is, I had to get permission from Actors Equity, took longer, opened April 17th, and April 18th was our official opening. It was our 34th anniversary.
How beautiful. Did the audience respond in a rapturous way?
People were excited, and de Blasio came, perhaps unaware that I had sued him, and said it was but to his credit, shook hands, said it was historic that theaters were reopening, and I was really, really proud. I hope that maybe my little theater's opening and people coming would make them feel like it was safe to go to Broadway. And I'm hoping that some of the people who came between April and when the first Broadway show opened, I think in August, some of them were like, wow, I'm sitting in a theater, everybody's wearing a mask, and I feel safe, and I didn't get sick.
Because we're going to have to learn to live with this too, I
Absolutely.
think. It's like we got to, as I said, you're working class. We got to go on. We got to go on. We can't stay closed forever. We can't live in this place of not making art and not doing theater. I'm a big believer in taking precautions, being safe, being logical, being reasonable, and taking health matters very seriously. But also, let's go back. Let's make this happen again. We have to get in front of audiences again.
Well, sitting in the theater, not to get philosophical, but it's a communal experience.
Right.
Whether you're on the stage, whether you're in the orchestra, you're in this room, whether you're watching the show, I think we miss that. People are sitting at home on their couches watching Netflix. And there's something glorious about being in a room.
Yeah.
I have to tell you. And whether I'm sitting watching the show or whether I'm on stage, I really appreciate even more being in the room right now.
I've worried a little bit that we have gotten used to not doing it so much that people have forgotten why it's necessary. I think that the extended closure and people being out of theater, I think we almost became normal to watch everything on Zoom. For even production meetings, we were having production meetings on Zoom.
Right.
I finally said, even with this team here, I said, we need to meet in person. Because there's no reason we couldn't do it on Zoom. We could talk about everything we had to. There's something about the in-person connection that just fuels all of the art and everything else that goes with it, I think.
I agree. People are scared. And so I was not scared. I'm not a fearful person. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to get sick. And I didn't. And I felt comfortable having people get in a room. And it's worked out. It's been great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What do you say... What do you see in this next generation of artists coming up? I worry that there's that the work ethic that you have instilled clearly in your own production is not there as much. That's going to sound unkind. I don't mean that. There's a lot of really hardworking 20-year-olds, and I know a lot of them. Of course there are. I just mean in general, I worry that the culture in the Broadway community of having to really show up for your show is not what it used to be either. Even Actors Equity made a statement saying sometimes the show maybe doesn't have to go on.
Showing up for work is important.
Me too.
I think it keeps you sane. I think people do better with boundaries and structure. I like having to do 8 shows a week.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, I got more done. Like I get more done when I have to do 8 shows a week than during COVID when I didn't have to do 8 shows a week. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and I agree with that as well.
I was almost exhausted trying to impose structure on myself. Yes. And I went to work every day, and I went to the theater every day, and we did everything we could to get ready to reopen. We Marie Kondoed everything and threw away everything we didn't need, and we found paint that wasn't being used and painted everything and redid the seats and polyurethane the floor. So I worked the whole time, but I didn't have to be on stage at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that was kind of interesting. People were like, are you all right? Oh my God. I was like, I'm fine. But I prefer structure.
How long do you want to stay in Perfect Crime?
Everybody always asks me that. If I need a walker, I'm not doing it, okay?
Okay.
Maybe I need to keep getting Botox, you know what I mean? And
So do I.
No. If I think I'll know when it's time to go. But
Sure.
I'm having a good time. Right?
Oh my God.
And nobody's throwing anything at the stage going, get off the stage, you're too old. Maybe if somebody does that. But until then, I'm really having fun. And I'm getting joy out of my life. And why would I want to stop that?
Well, we think you are a fixture in the theater community here. And we were so happy to have you on here. Thank you so much. You've been an amazing guest.
Thank you.
If you like this show, find us on social media at Patten Disregard and tag us. If you don't like it, go fuck yourself.